Well, hello, you collector car fans out there. This is once again Jason, the owner and founder of Southern Bush Motorsports. It's a good little tales from the bush for you today. Just a 1970 383 Roadrunner. Nothing real fancy about this car, but here's the catch. This car was detailed, cleaned up. Somebody did a heck of a job cleaning this car up, buffing it out, tire shine, cleaning the interior. But I was told that this car was an unrestored survivor. So just to let the people know that come by here all the time that know a little bit more than others about these old cars, this is going to be another class. Another class in helping the future generations determine if they're going to get ripped off or not. So let's get some comments out there from the experienced guys to help out these young people getting into the hobby. Was this car restored? Or was it an older restoration? Or was it cleaned up so good that, everything was fixed? Or is it really a survivor? Because sometimes they do restorations where it's just like they do the top half, but they don't do the bottom half. Or the car's restored while it's still on the, hasn't been taken apart, but it gets restored with everything still together. I'm not saying for me that this was a tough call. What I'm trying to do is to educate the future on if you're paying for a survivor car price, are you really getting a survivor car? Or are you getting a car that's an older restoration? Are you getting a car that's been cleaned up so well from an older restoration? For the future generations, here's the difference. Let's just say this was being advertised for you as a 1970 383 unrestored Roadrunner. Rightful mind, if this car was completely unrestored and it is what it was advertised, all numbers matching, car's worth 85,000 bucks right now in 2024. Now, if this was a restored car, all numbers matching, car would probably bring about 65, I think. If this was a car that was being advertised as a car that had been not restored but cleaned up, maybe 55, 60. Or if it's been a car that's been advertised as a rotisserie restoration, which is they used all NOS parts, new old stock parts, which is like 1970 Plymouth knew that people would need alternators and carburetors and stuff like that, so they would have these parts. So you got that carburetor that Plymouth made when they knew that people at this time of era, when they built the cars, would need new alternator and stuff. So let's just go for an example on that. If you were doing a rotisserie restoration, that would mean you'd have to use NOS parts because they have the date codes on them. This is a 383 car. I would not do a rotisserie restoration on this car. You're just pissing your money away and you're never going to get it out of it. Unless you just got nothing but money and you want a perfect car, then go for it. But you can go to AutoZone and get an alternator that'll work on this car for $7,500. A NOS, new old stock alternator for this car with the proper date code, it's going to cost you $600-700. It's not worth it. So when you're looking at the pictures of this car I could tell was cleaned up because I could still smell the wax on it and the chemicals that would have been used to clean this car up. But just because the car was cleaned up doesn't mean that it's not a unrestored survivor car. So this is where the inspection process gets a little difficult. So if you're buying one of these old collector cars, here's a little bit of knowledge for you. When you go online and look for an inspection company, these people that most of the time, unless you question it a little bit more, look at that engine compartment. Take a good look at that. So the inspectors that you look up online and go, well, these are people that inspect new cars. Does not mean they're a classic car expert. So they may not know what they're looking at. They may not know to check the numbers and all that stuff. So before you spend the $300, $400, or $500, inspection is important. Especially if you can't go and look at the car, you have to get it inspected to make sure the car actually exists. But you need to try to find an inspector that will know classic cars, that will know what to look for to see if parts have been replaced, stuff's been scraped up, motor's been out of it. That's where you really need to spend your money. So if you get it, there's a regular inspector for everyday vehicles out there, they're probably not going to give you, they'll give you a 10-page report, but not an accurate 10-page report. So getting back into saving money, spending money, and buying these collector cars. Look at the underside of that car. Okay, to me, that's the underside of a car that's never been restored. You got the wear and tear, you got the original parts, you got markings, you got chips in the frame from the undercoating that was put on from the factory. But that right there is a subframe connector, and that does not belong on that car. So was this car drag raced and wrecked? Was this car modified somehow? But that square tubing connects the two subframes together, the front frame and the back frame, to make the car more stable. Why'd they do that? I don't know. But that frame does not belong there. That square tubing right there does not belong there. And then you see this, National Street Rod Association. Looks like somebody had some fun with this car and might have done some racing. Still doesn't mean that it's not a survivor car. It could very well be a survivor car. But you're kind of losing a lot of points when you got welded parts in place. I mean, look at that right there. That, to me, does not look like it's been restored. It's had headers put on. You can see the gray there. Those are headers. It's not from the factory. Fender tag's still in place. So that's the fender tag. That's the thing that was made at the end of the assembly line from the build sheet. Why is it painted? Because it didn't come painted. You can see overspray right there on the frame. On the right hand side, a little bit of orange overspray. That's the way that was supposed to be from the factory. Do I see a lot of telltale signs that this car has been apart? No. Does it look like a survivor? No, I'll let you figure that out. I'll give you the answer at the end. So when you take a look at this car, it's really nice. It's really clean. I personally would be happy to have this car. It's a beautiful car. But it's not about that. What this video is about is, are you overpaying for a car? So the biggest thing about that is that you don't want to overpay for a survivor, like I've said many times before in my videos, because a true, untouched, unrestored car does not look like this. This is not how unrestored cars look like. This is too nice, too clean. This car is 50 years old. How could it be an unrestored survivor car? Maybe it is. Maybe it just got cleaned up really nice. Maybe somebody left it in a barn for 40 years and never drove the thing. But the reality of it is, when you look over a car like this and you see it look like that, okay, so underneath the car, I'll give it, probably wasn't restored. But I can tell you right now, this car's been repainted. There's too many telltale signs that this car's been repainted. I hope you guys called that in the very beginning. I know a lot of people that know old cars would definitely have called that. But, you know, how come the engine compartment looks like it's got a lot of old parts with chips and stuff? It's not perfect. Because this car was repainted a very long time ago. And it's had some wear and tear on it. I'm guessing in 2006, when you saw that sticker right there, the car was probably, from what I can see, restored back in that time and got driven around to the street rod shows and all that other fun stuff. Doesn't mean the car's not worth money. This still is a money car. It's still numbers matching from front to back. Numbers matching means the car came down the assembly line. The build sheet, the dot matrix paper that you see with all the numbers and stuff on it, that got hung over the frame or the body when they started the assembly. It could be a dealership order, it could be just a stock car, but that hangs over top of the car until it gets to the end of the assembly line, and then they pull out the blank fender tag. They make sure everything's correct on the car, and they make the fender tag, screw it on, which it wouldn't have been painted because they made them all silver or metal colored, and they screw it on because they've checked over the build sheet that hung above the car. They make the fender tag. The guy that's loading it into the train screws that fender tag in. He takes the build sheet from above the car, which went down with the car the whole line, and he sticks it in the seat somewhere or tapes behind a glove box, you know, wherever the guy wanted to. They were just told to make sure the build sheet went in the car. The bloody thing could be anywhere, but usually it's in the back seat, underneath the front seat on the bottom, or glued to the back of the glove box. Now, it's important to get to know the car that you're going to buy, because like this trunk, that's all correct in there. It's exactly the way they came from the factory. If that was a Survivor, that paint's just a little too clean. Look at that back seat. You know, a lot of people didn't sit in the back seats and stuff. Those looks like it's definitely possibly original interior, but you know, you can tell by the yellow staining on the stitching. That headliner. That could be an original headliner. If you look at the headrest closest to you, you see that little gap right there. That's a very correct gap. That gap's supposed to be there. But look at that steering wheel. Steering wheel looks a little worn out. The instrument gauges look definitely worn out. The plastics on them look worn out. The console looks worn out. So this could be a repainted car that has the original interior that's just been cleaned up really well. It's part of the course of when you're buying a car, know more than you need to know. And thanks for coming by and checking out our Tales from the Bush.